Welcome back to the channel, everybody. How are you? Dana and I decided that we, Dana and I are going to do something a little different for this episode. So we'd like to just give a disclaimer at the top of this episode, or a trigger warning or whatever, which is we will be cursing inevitably in this episode. And we'll tell you why, but I'm not going to go bleep it out because you may not be able to understand anything because there might not be anything left. So if you are particularly
if you're sensitive,
don't listen to this episode. I'm just going to say, like, right out of the gate.
Or if you have a little kid watching with you and you don't want them
to. Or you're like listening in the car, like listen to a different episode. Just put Dana and I away, for later. Put us on a shelf for later. Go ahead, Dana.
I grew up in the Chicago area, for those that don't know. And for those that have watched the show The Bear, and now I know why. I know why every other word in my language is fuck. Because I'm from Chicago. So I want everybody to know how hard it is every time we tape an episode for me to not have to have Gwen bleep out. It's like not breathing for me. Just so you know.
Yeah. It's really censored. It's like very suppressing for Dana, I think is what happens. But let me just tell you, Dana has given me, like, I can bleep out things now, like, pretty quick. I've got that.
You're a pro. Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm a pro at it. Yeah. Dana and I decided because Dana and I both get very salty, nasty.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes. Annoying.
With inspirational and motivational quotes. So what we decided is I'm relying on the Googles to give us the top inspirational and motivational quotes. And Dana and I are going to break these down for you today. So hang on, people.
Excuse me while I choke on
all right.
air of all of this.
I'm not going to read all of them.
No.
I'm just going to choose some.
And then we'll talk about why they're gaslighting and problematic. How's that?
Okay. Here we go.
Okay.
This one is courtesy of good old Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Believe you can, and you're halfway there.
Now that I know it's Teddy Roosevelt and I know the time frame, this is straight, rich, white male inspiration porn at its best. If you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you can do it. There's no such thing as inequity out there. You're just not trying hard enough. Yeah.
Inequity, difference, neurological differences. I'm going to tell you, if you went to a blind, you went to someone who's blind and you were like, listen, if you believe you can see, 50% of your vision's coming back.
Pretty much you're not trying hard enough. Come on.
I think this one here too, this one is pretty pervasive in the neurodivergent world because how many times it's like, if you just believed you could, if you just change your mind, if you just XYZ, you would be X. You would be successful. You wouldn't be in this position. You wouldn't be da 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 da. And so I really feel like this particular quote, which my clients hear all the time, all the way through school, all the way through life. And again, it's not always delivered by people with malice.
No.
But man,
it's interesting because
I
I posted a meme today on Awake, and it says, if you judge autistics for talking too much, fidgeting too much, having weird interests, being overly sensitive, or for being too direct or blunt, do you judge a diabetic for depending on insulin? Do you judge a wheelchair user for not walking? If so, if you check yes to these above, you might be ableist. Yeah. I mean, that's that continual, it's not something I can see, like that disability piece, or just there could be all these other factors like motivation. What if I don't want to do that? Yes, there can be real barriers, but what if I don't want to? So there's so many problems with that quote that are coming from the viewpoint of someone that has all the privilege, and they're just laden with that judgment and then shame, right? So if you're not able to get there, how do you feel? You feel crappy, right? These remind me of these posters that you see like in corporate offices, these little just look on your face. They usually have some really beautiful, picture of like an ocean scene. And then it says something like, if you reach for the sky, you'll swim amongst the stars. And you're just like, I really just want to throw something at those things.
You know what?
The violent side of me fantasizes. Yeah.
It fantasizes. The other one that I see a lot is just choose to be happy. Oh, that one really bothers me as well, because clearly that person has never been depressed.
Yeah. And wouldn't you be happy if you could just choose it? I mean, wouldn't we all do that if it were that easy?
Why do we choose the alternative?
Yeah.
Exactly. You think I wouldn't if I could?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You
mentioned before we went on about asking me if something was Adlerian, and it kind of reminds me of that too. And it was a real watershed for me when I was learning about some Adlerian concepts in terms of something like this, because what it does is it's erasure. It doesn't see the individual. It doesn't. When people ask me, people, just friends of mine and so on, or there's a show we're watching and someone has a dream and they're like, well, what does it mean? It drives me nuts when the people are like, oh, well, you dreamt about a purse and that's your, vaginal opening, because which I was actually told once. It's like, oh my God, I don't think that's what it means. There is this sort of top down, I'm the sage, I know what I'm talking about, think about like as psychology we're rooted in all of this colonized, I'm the expert, here's what you need to do. And when you're saying, like, parents will say, why aren't you just trying harder, and so on.
Yeah.
It is that sense of not seeing that kid or not seeing that person. What is going on with them that is going on with them, right? When I do assessments and people come to me and apologetically I say, do you have notes? Have you taken notes? Have you? And they're usually, almost always, especially if they're women, they kind of go like this. And I'm like, what's the scoop? Well, yeah, I have notes. And I said, well, send them to me. I'd love to have that. And why do I want to have that? Because I want to see what's really in there and not like just what I'm seeing in those few hours we're spending together. And inevitably, they send, like, I've gotten single-spaced things that are plus 20 pages. And they're embarrassed by it. And I'm like, this is awesome, right? And I'm going to do this is fucking awesome, right? Hey, there's one. But it really is about, people aren't reduced into this tiny little inspirational quote. But then when you do sort of put a judgment on it and say, oh, you're just not trying hard enough, you're not seeing the whys of that person's struggle. You're not seeing the context of what's going on, right? You're just not seeing any of that. You're just not seeing. So that is that person who has all the privilege and has climbed up the rungs of the ladder. It's easy for them to say, oh, you're just not trying hard enough, rather than saying, what's going on in there? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What might be the barriers? How do you feel when people tell you, you're just not trying hard enough? And, every single person's going to have a different reaction to that prompt, right? Based on their internal world. And that's what Adler talked about. If you do just cursory reading about Adler, you'll see the translation is he coined something called individual psychotherapy. And he gets misquoted as people thinking that's just about the person. What he meant was each individual is different. You have to look at each individual's context. You have to look at the hows and whys they're reacting in a certain way to that. It's not for me to just say, oh, this thing is frustrating to most people, so I'm going to assume it's frustrating to you. That's what he really meant by individual psychology. Once I learned that in my grad program, I was kind of like, oh, I don't have to, I can sit back and just sort of let this happen, right? Because that's where you really see someone rather than trying to shape them right away and put them into something. It's like letting something, it's like a sculptor letting something, having the clay tell them what this is supposed to be, rather than saying, damn it, I'm going to make an elephant and I'm going to force this clay into the shape of an elephant, which is really what something like that inspirational quote or what older traditional therapies do. Saying you're not trying hard enough is a version of making an elephant out of clay that doesn't want to be an elephant, right?
Yeah.
And I understand parents are frustrated and they can't figure out how to motivate or whatever, but usually if you just sit down long enough, like you do this work and you've told these stories before, where you see someone and they're able to tell you what they're feeling, these are usually watershed moments, right?
Yeah.
To be seen in that way.
Yeah.
So that reductionistic kind of, just try hard enough, you'll be fine. Yeah, that's what drives me nuts about these inspirational quotes. When Gwen and I were first talking about doing this before we started taping, I said, where are you going to get these? And she's like, oh, I'm going to go on Google. And then we both laughed because like a religious site was one of the first ones that came up. And we sort of laughed. And then you brought that one up. But you have another one. You have another one loaded, right? Tell us another one that you have.
How about this one, Dana? Energy and persistence conquer all things.
First thing I think of is I have EDS, I have POTS, I'm 60s. I used to be able to recklessly go all day and have persistence, would have a bad headache. I felt like I was going to vomit because my neck was so tense. And there was a lot of therapy that told me it's okay to not go all the time.
Yeah.
And it's still on some level, they're still like, oh, is this okay? Yeah.
Well, and I think like so many of the clients that I support end up with like the why bothers. It's like, Gwen, I have been working. It doesn't matter how hard I work. It doesn't matter how long I've worked. Nothing changes. Nothing happens. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I've done. You know what I mean? And so there's this real piece of like, they're completely demotivated. They're completely frustrated and resentful at the world. They're and so it's just difficult. There's another, this is Ben Franklin. Well, you guys, I'm sorry. I'm not fact checking where these quotes are coming from. I mean, we're just going to need to
pick some not 200-year-old white men quotes. Pick some other ones.
Oh, well, there's one with Elizabeth Barrett Browning.
Yeah.
You ready?
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Oh,
like God. Tomorrow with today. Clearly, Dana and I are really... It might be a reflection of how we're feeling about the world in general.
Just a little. It's so reductionistic. I mean, it's almost as like, this is one of those things that when you finally see it, you can't unsee it. And I think that's what the inspirational quotes are like. People are like, oh, that's so wonderful. And then you're like, yeah, but you haven't crossed over to the other side yet, have you?
But this is also from another woman, Alice Morse Earle. Every day may not be good, but there's something good in every day.
Now that one I can sort of jibe with, okay.
Because it's a gratitude practice. It's a little bit of a gratitude practice. But I think depending on where I am or where some people are just really mentally, you actually just want to like put up two fingers on this. Which totally. Fingers too, like whatever.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was sorry, go ahead.
No, I go, Dana. Go.
I along those lines of like you in the world, right? Trying to move through the world, and what you mentioned with some of the clients you support, where it's like nothing's working, and the defeatedness you can have for that. For those that don't know, I'm a bicyclist. I love everything bicycles. You can find me in the month of July watching 6 hours of Tour de France coverage every day. It starts on Saturday. I'm so excited. Special interest much? Anyway. So my bike that I have now is 18 years old. And I'm like, okay, I was starting to think maybe a new bike. And then I feel guilty. And then I'm like, oh, this bike's really old. Anyway, so I find a bike I want. I go to the Trek store. There's a Trek store that just sells Treks close to me. Not a lot of traffic. I'm like, this is going to be great. I don't have to go through all the traffic to go to North Seattle. And I go and I start asking the guy about modifications I need to make. I need to have on my bike now has a razor for the handlebars so they go up a little bit further because I have some issues with my neck. And he's resisting it. He's not finding these things. And I'm like, well, for like an hour and a half, he's looking in the computer stuff. He's not being super helpful. And then he says, we can't put a riser or stem on that bike. And I said, well, that's a deal breaker then. And I left. And I felt really kind of the wind sucked out of me, right? And then I did go to that place of, why am I even doing this? This is stupid. Mm-hmm. If I go anywhere else, they're not going to be able to help me. This is just kind of dumb. And so I waited 2 or 3 days, and then I went to the bike shop that my wife got hers at. And I got in there and the guy said, can I help you? And I said, well, let me just preface this with, I need a bike that I can do these blah, blah, blah things to. And then I just said to him, I said, I really like this specific Trek bike, but I went to the Trek store in South Center and they were not helpful. And he just sort of smiled. He goes, yeah, that's kind of a Trek thing. And I was like, really? He says, yeah, they just want their Trek stuff. And if they don't have it to add, they won't put anything else on the bike. And he was so helpful. I mean, I actually said to him, and I bought the bike. I don't have it yet, but they're putting different handlebars on. They're raising it. They're doing a bunch of stuff. And I even said to him, I said, as I'm standing here now, I'm excited. And he says, well, good. I said, no, you don't understand. When I left the Trek store like 3 days ago, that was it. I was never going to buy another bike again in my entire life. Right?
Yeah, sure.
And what that was like coming up against a wall. And I thought of these sorts of clients where you hit a wall and to the outsider, it's like, you just went to a bike store, go to another bike store. What's the big deal? No big deal. If it's something that is so important to you and it took you months to get there in the first place and you feel stupid about it because you're like, here, I'm buying this really expensive bike and I want the handlebar higher. That's kind of dorky. And then I find this article that says, all of us have been riding our bikes wrong. Yes, the pros in the Peloton ride low because they have to be aerodynamic. Why the worst for us? Why are we doing this? We're hurting ourselves. It hurts your neck. And I'm like, yeah. So I sort of went loaded for bear, not saying all those things, but with a little bit different attitude. But I also found someone who was willing to work with me and was like a good human, right?
Yeah.
It made all the difference. So from the sense of I don't belong here, they don't want to do what I'm doing, shame-based sort of thing, right? Wanting to shut down. I did. I came home and I just sort of stared at the TV like this for like 3 hours because I was just like, well, this is stupid. And I thought of clients that just give up. If someone were to come to me at that point in time and have just said, well, why don't you just push back? Why don't you just tell them you want to buy your own handlebars? I mean, that would be so ridiculous in my percept, in my mind. Someone else might be able to do that, but it's not me, right? And that's the thing that we miss with these kind of inspirational memes. We're not seeing those people to where if I preface that and that person does try to help me, and at first he was having a hard time finding the ones that were going to work. I had to make some concessions. We went back and forth a couple of times. I said, that's totally doable. He says, great. And he worked with me. It reminded me of when parents sort of finally get something, or I get through to some of my clients in reparenting themselves, if you will. Can you be a little sweeter to yourself? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you take someone along with you that could do that better? How do you remove the barriers to just attaining your dream? Work hard enough and you'll get your dream.
Yeah.
It's just not that simple, right?
Yeah.
It's just so complicated in every move you make in any given day. So I was telling you before we went on too, for some strange reason, my printer printed 2 days ago. And when I did the exact same thing yesterday, it wouldn't print. And I almost chucked that thing out the window. I was this close. I'm like, well, this wasn't a super expensive printer. But that's really dumb because then I have to buy a new one. And that was really a pain to find this one. Then I'd have to go through all that again, which is the only reason I didn't throw it out the window, right? I wanted to hear it crash onto the patio below. I really wanted to.
Yeah.
So, but then an interesting thing happened. I was like, oh, wait a minute. There's this thing called printer drivers. So I deleted my printer and my computer and I reinstalled the printer driver and it worked, right? And I went down and I told my wife, I said, she's the one that's taught me how to do that and problem solve. before that, I would just get frustrated. Like a kid would be like, you can't get in anymore because I'm just so activated. I'm frustrated. I can't do anything. I mean, I was like almost crying. It's bad emotionally when those kinds of things don't work for me. So, and that's how many years? Her and I have been together over 20 years. And I'm like, what would Sue do? Oh, she'd probably look at the printer driver and do that. And I knew I could ask for help, but I wanted to try to figure it out myself. But those things those are not little hills. Those are huge hills for neurodivergent folks. And we have to, you have to realize that in yourself. You have to have people in your life realize that. And it's not about, you've had I'm thinking about what you went through recently with the fires. What if someone would come up to you one of those days and said, what's something good that happened today, though? You're being so negative. You probably would have choked them right there on the spot.
Oh yeah. I mean, even like, I mean, it's, we're still dealing with insurance and everything.
Yeah.
And, my adjuster before this one, because we've had 5, I wanted to hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because
your version of throwing the printer out the window.
She kept saying to me, I understand. I understand how you're feeling. And I was like, I finally said to her, I don't think you do.
Yeah.
Unless I'm missing some piece of information that you have also been a victim of this fire.
Yeah, right.
I actually don't think you do. Like, what am I missing here? Yeah. And I'm not usually like that. Usually I'm, again, like the nail that sticks up. I don't ever stick out. That's just been really, really hardwired for me. Yeah. But I hit my limit, and honestly, navigating this bureaucratic process of denials and partial denials and ignoring and games, it's just a little picture for me into what so many of my clients have dealt with for the entire life across school districts, across insurance companies, across whatever, Medicaid, Medicare. I mean, like across all of these things, any kind of bureaucratic business.
That's the other kind of thing that can make me cry is trying to get insurance through.
It's awful.
And I think it's because you feel helpless. You feel like it isn't as easy as finding something good that happened today. Those things feel unattainable because you don't have the information, right?
I don't. And like, to be fair, Dana and I are just being, we're just being extra. But sure, there is an ounce of truth to all of these things. I mean, but I do think it's like, what space are you in order to receive this inspirational or motivational quote, right? Like, for example, like there's this one, and like this one I really like, which is from Aesop. Aesop says, "No act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted." There's some lovely, like that's so lovely. Like I think I could relate to that one, whether I was sociopathic or not.
You can find some way to make that fit. Yeah.
But I think it's like this kind of the ones, it's a lot of times it's like, just make up your mind about it. It's like mind over matter stuff, or the don't stop, be persistent, Yeah. Clearly we understand that life takes a lot of resilience. But I think when you're supporting people who struggle for a majority of their life, telling them to keep going is really discouraging.
Feels crappy. Yeah, exactly. If that's all you're
and dismissive and diminishing of their experience. Clearly, the quote on a shirt, on a poster, is supposed to brighten someone's day or give them a little boost, and we get that. I just find it to be funny. Like some of them that I read, it's like, oh, really? Okay.
Well, I didn't swear nearly enough. So give me a good one.
Oh, some of these are.
Oh.
Wow. I don't think, I don't know. Again, you guys, I'm sorry if we're not like fact checking here. If these are actually where.
who they were rather than just
Yeah,
read
yeah,
one
yeah.
and yeah.
And I'm not, you know what? Let's end with a good one.
Okay.
You want to end with a bad one?
No, it's okay.
I like this one. Maybe it's a good one because I feel like this is maybe something good to end with, just given what's happening today.
Yeah,
Just for everyone's reference, it is July the 1st. Dana and I are taping on July the 1st, 2025 here. Whatever you are, be a good one. That's good old Abe.
I could find,
Lincoln.
yeah. And that can also feel patronizing. Some days you don't want to be good.
Oh, no joke. No joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Anyway, all right, everyone.
Well, but really quick, the last two you did that were more positive, I think were about a mindset internally that I can tailor to me, right? Like, what am I able to give? What am I able to be kind with versus something that is like, you can do anything you want if you just reach hard enough. No, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
tell us what some of your...
Yeah, anyone that lives in the neurodiverse world community is touched by some way in the neurodiverse community. We all understand that effort alone is not enough.
That's right. Yeah.
And sometimes when I tell my client to do more, it's harmful. It's like, no, I actually need you to do less. Like, I actually need you to pull back a little bit here. Like, you are on a quick path to burnout. And when that happens and we hit that threshold, it's going that recovery process is a long one. We're not doing that.
That's right.
And so I think a lot of times it's like, it's those quotes that are like, effort's enough, mind over matters enough. Those can feel really awful.
Shaming and just kind of
shaming. Yeah. Maybe what you guys can do in the comments, if you want, is you can share a quote that you feel that gets you that you like. Yeah, do one that you like, or do one that every time you see it, or you're like, are you can do
you want to throw something? Yeah,
throw something. Throw a printer out the window.
Exactly.
Yeah, that could be a meme. Dana, isn't there like those Bitmojis where like you're raging, like there's those raging Bitmojis? It could be you just.
I love the one where it's like a explosion coming out of the head. That's one of my favorite.
Yeah. We can make a Bitmoji.
Really awesome.
We can make a Bitmoji of you throwing a printer out the window.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Instead of like tossing a table or flipping a table or something.
Yep. Exactly.
Printer out the window.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway. All right, everyone. Thank you for allowing Dana and I this little diversion. We will catch you in the next episode. Remember to be good to you and others. Bye.